Kingy, what are your first thoughts off the back of last night?
Well, my first thoughts you're well aware of coming in this morning. I still don't see how the Port Adelaide plan is going to beat the best in the competition. I think it's still a strong forward press that as soon as the good sides are able to pierce through, they have too many stroll-in scores against them. And it's an issue that's still there, that hasn't resolved itself. I don't think it's as simple as a one-man fix with Aliir coming back in. I think that it's a systematic problem, not a personnel issue. You've made a whole host of changes in the off-season, so it's still there, is my first thought. So where do you sit with the method, the plan? Does it beat the best?
Yeah, well, I was just watching last night going, how easily are they scoring? Like, it was frightening. So I'm thinking there's an issue defensively. You're pressing too high. The ball's in your forward half. When you have stoppage dominance and you lock it in your forward half, all the numbers come up and press up aggressively, which is great. But as soon as you get through, it was just like a procession of easy goals. They had eight entries in the first quarter for 5 goals. Adelaide scored 8 goals straight from inside 30, which says to me something broke down badly defensively. And you can talk about accuracy all you like, and we'll hear from Ken Hinkley on that shortly, but the facts are when you get the ball in dangerous spots inside 30, you don't miss, and that's what Adelaide did last night. So
three in the goal square. Yeah, I mean, it's a type of goal that gives you the accuracy.
Walking goals. So I thought they pressed too high. I didn't think they had any protection back, and I didn't think they adjusted to that quickly enough. That's one point. I thought they were incredibly fumbly. Adelaide's pressure was great, and the issue for Port Adelaide is when you play against good teams who bring really serious frontal pressure, they haven't been able to cope, and they fumbled the footy. They fell over. They cuffed it up. I thought Butters fumbled at times. I thought Wines fumbled at times. He was really good late, Wines. I thought Drew fumbled for the first time I've seen him this year. I thought Burgoyne fumbled. I thought Rosie definitely fumbled early in the game. And there's a couple, Port Adelaide have the ball, cough it up, bang off turnover. What'd they kick off turnover? That was frightening. They kicked 8-5 off turnover to 113. So that doesn't work in big games, and Port Adelaide have been found out in big games again. So, yeah, it was like a moment. I thought it was a big moment in the context of where the club is going last night. Some games are bigger than others. Last night I felt like it was big in a way that...
Meaning what, though?
Well, we know where it's at with Ken. Like, we know where it's at. If it doesn't work, they've got plans in place to move Ken on, and Ken's fine with that. Not fine with that. Ken is comfortable with that.
This?
There's a succession plan in place. We know that. It's been reported. And Josh Carr, if things don't go well, and when I say don't go well, they're going to have to go deep.
Year.
Well, that would be my thought on it. Yeah, it would.
He's got 2 years, hasn't he?
He's got a year after this. But I mean, what does a contract mean? And I think they're comfortable with the fate of that. The question is that the right way to go? And there's a long way to go in the season. And last year there was a moment where they were struggling. They went on to win 13 in a row. And after next week, the draw opens up for them. So they're good enough to remain in the hunt. And I think they'll do that. But last night just felt a bit bigger than just your average home and away game. It's a showdown. They had a poor record in showdowns. They'd spoken a big game in the lead up to showdowns in the past, and they'd been made to look a bit foolish. They didn't do that last night, which was the right thing to do. But the way they lost, how they lost, the risk that they took with the captain, it just felt bigger than a normal home and away loss to me last night. Whatever that means, I don't know. But that was the sense I got walking out of that stadium last night.
So sounds to me like you've lost confidence in the Ken plan.
Well, it's hard not to when you're not the plan. I've lost confidence in their ability to stand up consistently in big games against good opposition.
Is that the plan or is that the personnel?
Well, I don't think the plan. If you're looking at the plan and you go, okay, we want to be really strong in the contest, and we want to have field position dominance, and we want to lock the ball in our forward half and bring elite press. I don't think there's anything wrong with that plan. But there needs to be some adjustments to the plan. Well, when the opposition are getting through so easily, you go, well, they've kicked 2 off turnover, walking goal. We're just going to sit a bit deeper with our defence, or we're going to have a wingman roll back harder, or we're going to have not that you can get a Tom Stewart off the street, but we're going to have someone try and play the Tom Stewart role where you're just patrolling a little bit and you're not pressing as high and as aggressively. So I would have thought there would have been an adjustment to that last night, and I didn't see it. Just the other point, I thought, that everyone would love a key forward, but what happens after Charlie Dixon? I mean, the amount of times Todd Marshall played from behind last night and wanted the easy one over the back, and Georgiades, when the pressure was on, I didn't think their forwards presented up at the kicker as well, and they wanted the easy ones out the back. As a player, I think you've just got to adjust to that. So there was a few things that I don't think I'm okay with the plan, because I just described the plan,
Okay.
but there needs to be some adjustments to that plan when things don't go your way.
Yeah, well, we're going to agree to disagree on this one again.
So what would you?
I don't think this plan stands up against the very best.
Okay,
and I see it again last
what
night.
Plan? So is Carlton's plan any different to Port Adelaide's plan? Because there was a procession again. They play a similar plan, strong from stoppage, lock in your front half. They got scored heavily against last week. Once you get through,
Yeah, in a different manner. In a different manner, and that's a little bit to do with the way Geelong small forwards pinch forward. I just felt like they lose contact with their opposing forward far too easily. Burton comes off Rankin 2 or 3 times at the absolute wrong time. Asava worries me. I don't think he's the player that others do. I don't know if he's a guaranteed lock to be a quality AFL centre-half back. I just think he makes a lot of poor decisions, and that can be with ball or with positioning, releasing at the wrong times. I worry about the ball use of Houston and Farrell is terrific, but they just make a lot of strange decisions at the wrong time, particularly rolling off or trading up, as they like to call it. I thought it was Dirk Thatcher, who's looked really good at the start of the season, had a really poor night. And then all the same problems come home to roost. So I think it's a different plan to the other clubs, definitely.
I just want to get this out the way. Want to listen to the Port Adelaide captain, Connor Rozee, speaking with Aaron Phillips on Channel 7 pre-game last night.
You've obviously had some issues, hamstring, but you've done a lot of high-speed running this week. How are you feeling?
Yeah, pretty good, to be honest. I think it got probably blown out of proportion a little bit during the game. I sort of felt it a little bit, and I knew it wasn't major. It was more precautionary when they took me off. So obviously got through all the testing and was feeling pretty good the last couple of days. So there was never any doubt yesterday, I don't think, whether I was going to play or not, but feeling good now.
Pretty obvious about 10 minutes into the first quarter that it wasn't going the way that they would have hoped. Here's Ken Hinkley's admission after the game.
Ken, the power of hindsight's a very powerful thing. Do you guys think you made a mistake playing Connor Rozee tonight?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, I made a mistake playing Connor Rozee tonight. That was clear. It was obvious. All the testing that we done, all the medical support we could get, all the information I could get was Connor was able to, and I seen it with my own eyes. He was actually able to run as fast as he needed to, kick as long as he needed to. But once fatigue set in tonight, that was clear. And you can be. I can try and hide behind that, but I'm not cowed when it comes to owning a mistake, and that was what it was. Yeah, I think that's exactly what will happen. He'll have another scan, and we'll make sure there's no extra, if there is any extra damage, or because there was very little damage on the scan last, so that's why it was tricky.
Yeah, one thing I don't like doing is questioning the medical staffs of clubs, because they all have the best interests of their players at heart, and they make these tricky decisions with the best intentions. But it was just so obvious. Because you saw it last week, he couldn't go. Like he did his hammy, came off, went back on, and he couldn't go. Like he was limping around. So then to take a risk like that with a hamstring injury, and credit to Ken for saying I made the mistake, but I don't think that's just okay because you make a mistake. It was such a obvious mistake to avoid, and now the fallout is significant from it. So that was just another element that I thought that it felt bigger. We spoke about this pre-game with Bix. I said, worst case scenario for Port Adelaide is Port Adelaide lose, Connor Rozee plays poorly, and/or he does his hammy, and this is going to be a huge story. I think it's a big story, the risk that they've taken there, and says a bit about the importance that they placed on this game and a risk that wasn't worth taking. Anyway, we'll wait and see now, but he's
6
probably
days.
Six-day
break.
Exactly. It was ridiculous.
Yeah. And it is easy in hindsight, of course it is. But and they have all the information, Corns. We're not here to question the medical science or the medical decision. But sometimes you've just got to take it out of the player's hands. This guy's too valuable a commodity to run any risk. If there was any doubt, and when I heard there was something on the scan, that's enough for me. That for a player who's a blue chip investment, an absolute top liner, captain of your footy club. Okay, it doesn't impact your ability to win this game. Of course it does, but we've got to play the long game, don't we?
I think I measure myself on what do the best clubs do, right? So what is and I know Dangerfield's done his hammy, and you question his training and how much high speed running they're doing. But take you back to the grand final with Holmes, who puts his hand up and says, "I'm good to go." This is a grand final, and Chris Scott says, "Nah, you're not playing." Like he was past fit, he was sprinting, he was doing all the things that Rosie was doing, and this is a grand final. Now you could say, well, Stephen May played with a torn hammy for Melbourne, and that worked. And you're right. And you're right. And there's a lot of players that play that we would have no idea that they're going in under a cloud. But when it was so public, and when you weigh up the risk and reward of this decision that you make, that the risk just was too great to make that decision.
But even the messaging was false. So we mentioned this last night. So in the pre-game, they say, no, nothing on the scans, nothing to see. He's 100% right to go. He's cleared. There's no issue. And then after the game, they say, oh, look, if we're being truthful, there was something on the scan. I mean, if we're being truthful, like if there's something on the scan, what are you doing?
Yeah, you can have your say on that. 1300 736 736. Do we need to pay some credit to Adelaide or?
Absolutely. I thought they were. What do you like about Jake Saligo? I think he's a player they're just going to build this midfield around. I think I mentioned it last night, and not saying that this guy's going to win Brownlows, but he plays a little bit like Lachie Neale. Really in and under. He's got that low centre of gravity. He takes the ball from inside to out. He tried to do a bit too much early in the game last night. He got nabbed a few times, but he's only played 45-odd games of footy, so he's learning the caper. He's the one they got to build around, Cornsey.
Like everything about him is to answer your question, and he's been the one. It's amazing that's really changed the course of the season for them. Really, like when he went into the midfield against Freo, there was like, okay, there's a lot here, and then from there he's just been. I mean, he's been unbelievable, really, consistently doing it, and now that he belongs at level, I just want to. Michael-Aney, I just want Max Michael-Aney is the next Jake Lever. Well, what he's doing in his second year is enormous, and him and Worrell are forming a really nice combination. They took 6 intercept marks between them last week. They dominated that third quarter, and you think, yeah, okay, that's okay, but that's against North. But Michael-Aney does it every week. He beats his opponents and good opponents and then comes off at the right time. So thought he was enormous. Nixie lauded their back six last night. Hard to disagree with that when you absorb nearly 60 entries and defend as well as they did last night. This is exactly what they needed to give them the belief. That's the footy that I saw them play last year. Incredibly tough, contested, hard to play against, defend well, and then devastating to score. And that was exactly what you saw again last night for the Crows.
That's why I keep endorsing this guy as a coach. And we've had our arguments about the re-signing of this guy and all that sort of thing a month ago and compared this to the Justin Longmuir discussion. I see it with this guy. I see the ball movement. I see the defensive pattern. To assess that this is all going wrong in the midfield and to have the courage to make change on the run is a difficult thing for coaches to do. He spun the magnets in that midfield.
He had to, though. Like wasn't that the obvious move?
Well, look, there's obvious moves everywhere in AFL footy at the moment that aren't getting adjusted.
They got Brisbane at home next week, and who knows what sort of Brisbane team's going to turn up. And then Collingwood at the MCG the week after.
So having said what you've just said about Port Adelaide and the succession planning and all that sort of stuff, have they made an error with the 2-year extension for Ken?
No, I stick to what I said last year. When you've put a timeline on it that it is August, and you've publicly done that as a club, and then you've won 13 in a row, and you've finished top 4, and you're on the eve of the finals, to then go into a final series with uncertainty around the coach and that shadow over you ahead of a final series where you feel like you're in a good position, to then go, no, we're just going to wait on the coach and we're going to see how the finals plays out. I don't think they made an error. Now, you could question the error that was made in terms of putting the time frame on it, but once you'd done that, and then you'd won 13 in a row, you're going into a final series where you qualified top 4, I'm not going to be critical of that. Now, it's a 2-year contract. He hasn't signed. They haven't signed him for 5 years. They've got a plan in place. Clearly, he's been there for a long time. We get it, and he gets it. And the whole club gets it. The supporter base gets it. Has it gone on for 2 or 3 years too long? Maybe, but they've been pretty successful.
It's a big concession from you. I haven't heard you talk like that.
No, I said
That's
that.
a big
I
concession.
said that
You called
last
him-
year.
No, you didn't. Last year you said he's a great coach. We
No,
had this chat for 15 minutes.
I think he is. I think.
He can't be considered a great coach.
Well, maybe great, but he's been such a great contributor to that football club, and he's
Agree with that.
and all of that. And I mean, he's been twice a kick away from a grand. Like you got to understand how close he's been with a squad that I don't think is comparable to some of the others in the league. You go through how many top 10 draft picks are on Port Adelaide's list. There's hardly any.
Mate, after you've been there 10 to 12 years,
and
it's your squad, mate.
And he's got really close. So it's coming to the point where everyone knows where it is at. He knows where it's at. They're mature about it, and I don't think there's no need to do anything drastic.
No, there's
now. Like they're a good footy side.
This is their lot.
They'll
now.
be in the mix. And last year they went on.
They won't be in the mix.
They'll be in the mix for finals.
Oh, for finals.
Yeah.
Terrific.
Well,
we're here to win flags, aren't we?
well, how many are in the mix for? How many teams can win the flag? 3.
Well,
So
but
what?
they're all-
The 15 others give up.
No, we're talking about them being a contender last year, and then 6, 7 games later, you're saying, "Oh, that's it." No, it's succession planning. Oh, we knew this.
No, I'm not saying that at all. I said they're in the mix, and you said they're not in the mix. I said,
Well,
there's only 3 teams that are in the mix for the flag. Like, are we talking? So, did the Saints give up? Do Essendon give up? Do Freo give up? Do Adelaide give
No,
up?
that's not rational. That discussion. That's not a rational discussion.
Well,
seriously.
if you're talking,
Can't seriously be saying that.
in the mix for a flag.
They're all building towards a flag. Under Ken right now, they are stagnating right now, Port Adelaide.
I would rather
before
be
your very eyes.
Port Adelaide than a lot of the other teams.
You just told me the list was no good.
Well, they don't have. That's why I give Ken credit, because he's done a pretty good job with not a lot of weapons. That's the discussion we always have around this. And if
He's got some pretty good weapons in there, to be honest.
well, who?
Pretty handy midfield
Yeah,
running
he's
around.
got a good.
Every time they get a kick, I see Icebath pop up on my Twitter.
Oh, how good is he? He's unbelievable. But just on the score review, Kingy, we saw how it should work last night. Travis Boak thinks he's kicked the goal. Everyone's gone back. There's no score review. Everyone's gone back to set up for the centre bounce. They've checked whether it's a goal or not in the ad break. They've found out that the ball has hit the post. That's the way that it should. Do we even need a score review when you can check it for goals? For points, of course, you do. But that's how it should work, shouldn't it?
Yeah, and the other review was spot on. Zerk Thatcher probably could be the best mark I've ever seen him take, but unfortunately for him, it was 6 inches behind the goal line.
You're not a fan? I thought he was actually pretty solid last
was it chest height? What
and then he
Ruckman?
and then he was arguing.
What are Ruckman doing? Seriously, why wouldn't Big Sweetie be on the goal line and just touch that ball?
Yeah.
What the hell is going on with Ruckman?
Text me last night about Jordan Sweet. They said, would you rather Jordan Sweet or Gary Sweet?
Gary Sweet is a ripper.
I don't want to.
Saw Gary at the races during the off-season. He's a beauty.
He's one of the great men, Gary
Yeah.
Sweet. I'm not sure I'd want him in ruck.
He'd
but
have a go. I like. I'll tell you,
maybe-
I'm going with Gary. I'm going with Gary as a
Let's put a
ruckman.
Twitter poll up. Who would you
Yeah.
rather in ruck? Gary
Gary
Sweet
for
or
me.
Jordan Sweet? Well, that
Gary.
may have been the text that I responded with. Not a great one for Jordan last night, I didn't think. Jay,
He could pretend to be a ruckman anyway. We know that.
Jay's on the line. Right, let's take the last call in the showdown, because there's a whole heap of other great games of footy across the round which we want to get to as well. What's your thoughts, Jay?
Kane, good day, mate. Hey, this question is directly to Kingy. Kingy, your analysis is spot on, mate. I think Kane's a bit soft in Port Adelaide. He goes, every other team, but he's a bit soft on Port Adelaide. What are your thoughts?
He's definitely softer on Port Adelaide. We all know that, and I think that if you're going to blame the list, well, where's that conversation been for 2 years? It's been all beer and skittles when Hon Francis got on board.
Just the point. It's hard to get the access to the top draft picks like a North have had when you finish
you've been
mid-table.
gifted. You've been gifted.
Gifted what?
Horn
They
Francis,
gave up
number
two,
one
They
pick.
gave up 2 first-round picks for him. North didn't have to
What-
trade him.
what number pick are they? They're picks. They're picks in the deep teens.
So if you're looking at,
It's a bargain.
you don't get the access to the top end of the draft.
You were gifted
when
Horn
you were,
Francis.
You weren't gifted. You gave up
You
two.
got-
You said last week I would not give up 2 first-round draft picks for anyone. They're the words you said, and now you're saying that you've been gifted Horn Francis. Did you
Well,
not
picks in
say?
the-
Did you
picks
not?
in
Hang
the
on, hang on. Did you
teens.
not say you would never give
I
up
wouldn't.
2
I
first-round?
wouldn't.
But then you just said we've been gifted him.
Yeah.
But they gave up 2 first-round draft picks. That's a
I wouldn't
decision
do it.
that
You're
you said
asking
you
my-
wouldn't- Well, it
Yeah,
can't
but
be
that's-
gifted.
Picks in the teens are not
But
for,
you
for a
said-
pick
but
one.
You said you'd never give up 2 first-round draft picks for anyone, and now
I
you're saying
wouldn't-
they've been gifted him.
I wouldn't do that because I think it holds your list back a little bit. But
That's
they're there to
confusing.
win it. But they're there to win it. You haven't spoken about Port's list management for 5 years, and then as soon as it tips over, probably the succession plan's there, and the list is not good enough.
I think that's
it's a big concession
unfair.
from where
I
you
think
were.
that's unfair because my commentary
Unfair?
around Ken's coaching is that I think he's done a pretty good job with not a lot of weapons. So if that's having, I believe that's a subtle crack at the list. So I think
Why subtle crack though? That's the point. Why subtle crack?
I don't owe Port Adelaide's list management anything. Why
is it subtle then?
I was
Just be
ruthless.
genuine.
I was ruthless, and you can go back and read my comments when they traded Dougal Howard. I was like, why would you trade a key defender that you don't have when you're in the Premiership? I was ruthless on that decision. I couldn't have been any stronger. I am critical of Port Adelaide. People don't want to hear it at times. I don't really care. I'm separated from the club. I'll have my thoughts when I have them. And I've said last night I felt like it was a significant moment and a turning point for the club. If you want me to be any stronger than that, I can be. But it's, what are we at? We're at round 7. We're at round 8. And I think you can be made to look foolish if you make big statements this early on in the season when you're still inside the top 8. And they kicked 5 goals, 18. That's about as hard as I wanted to go this morning at round 8.
Okay.
Anyway,
It's hard to change your list in season, so if you can talk about the list build, surely.
Yeah, well, I have, because I think he's done a pretty good job with not a lot of weapons. And, I mean, the numbers speak for themselves. Go and compare their top 10 picks with everyone else's, their access to father, sons and academies to everyone else's, and you can look at the numbers for yourself. It's the same discussion that you can have about some other teams. Righto, let's get to this.
In the gun. Who have Kane and Kingy got in their sights this week?
Oh, I was going to put them in the gun. In the Gun is for Grays.com. It's Australia's leading online auction marketplace. Where are you taking this?
I'm going to tonight's game. I'm going to the 30 pluses that are representing the Collingwood Football Club at the moment. They have looked off for a few weeks. They need, as a collective, and there's a whole. You can go Crisp, you can go Pendlebury, you can go Sidebottom if you want. You can go wherever you want. I'm not necessarily going after one player, but this group of senior, experienced, proud warriors who have been there before and responded to this sort of challenge need to find tonight. There's about half a dozen 30 pluses in there that are underperforming. We need to see a response from them tonight.
Well said. If you want to put someone in the gun, you can. I've got a few, but left field. Can I put Tom Hawkins in the gun?
Tom Hawkins.
Yeah, I'm going to put Tom Hawkins in the gun because if
he's a friend of ours.
no,
he comes on the show.
He's a friend of everyone's. Tom Hawkins, but we don't take any prisoners here. Hasn't kicked one for 3 weeks, and when you put your hand up and you say I'm going again, and it's the same discussion you have with Rory Sloane or Travis Boak or Dyson Heppel, who's lived up to his end of the bargain. When you put your hand up at that stage and say, I want to go again, you've got to perform, and it's on you to perform. And I don't think he has been doing that, and others around him have probably allowed him to escape some scrutiny with where he is at. So Tom's in the gun this week. They got a huge game. It's all been Jeremy. Henry's been good. The small forwards at the Cats have been great. And I don't think Hawkins has lived up to his end of the bargain. And not only that, his opponent is having a big influence on the games of footy as well. So, Tom,
I like it.
you're in the gun. And just quickly, I mean, let's keep the season alive. For those teams that have won 2 games or 1 game, it's going to be a really long season for you if you start to continue to drop games. So I'm looking at Brisbane, Kingy.
Yes.
It's hard not to have them in the gun. And
Can I put one other little thing in the gun while you're going lateral as well?
yeah.
What's happened to holding the ball? When the player's got the ball in his right arm and the right arm's not being tackled, the left arm's being tackled, don't they have to dispose of the ball? What? Last night there were about 15 incidents where they just said, "Oh, we'll ball it up." He really couldn't get rid of that. That was a bit hard on him. We'll ball that one
It's
up.
not paid, and then sometimes it is paid. So
it
sometimes
back.
they're really hot, and sometimes they're not. So just looking at it, last night there was 7 paid, but when you look at the tackle count,
It's more the one where the arm's free. Like you have to throw that at your foot to try and dispose of it. You have to try and rip your other arm back into a handballing motion.
No,
you can't
I'm
just
with
lay
you.
on the
No,
ground with
I'm
the ball.
with you. If there is nearly 140 tackles in a game of football and only 7 of them result in holding the ball, something's wrong with the game. So there's too much time, and whether it's the umpires, the interpretation, or whether the rules are wrong, there isn't enough holding the balls paid, and I agree with you. That was the case last night. Grays.com, Australia's leading online marketplace. It's easy to buy and sell with Grays. If you want to put someone in the gun, you can do that right now. So just on Brisbane, like this is make or break sort of stuff now for them. So it's the Suns, it's Adelaide, who now look more daunting as a proposition than it's Richmond and Hawthorn. They got to get a move on. They got to win their next 4, and it starts against. I don't know if they're a good opposition Gold Coast yet, but I think they'll challenge.
don't know.
I don't know how to assess Gold
Jeez,
Coast.
you're hard on the Suns.
Kingy.
Come, just get on board, man.
No, I'm on board with what they've got and where they're going to be and what they're going to get to. But can you genuinely, hand on heart, say when Gold Coast aren't playing at home and they're playing against good opposition, you can trust what they're going to deliver? Can you
40
genuinely say that?
40% of teams win on the road. It's a fact. It's what history tells us. If you play a top 8 team, it drops down to 25. You play a top 4 team, it drops to 15. They're the numbers. So when you travel, it's
So
hard
where
to
do the
win.
Bulldogs rank in all of that when they get smacked by the Bulldogs?
Haven't got that
No,
on me. But this is a big opportunity. If Turk Miller can do the job on Lachie Neale again, game on.
Yeah, I love it. I love that teams are now starting to make it a bit more
Kept him to
difficult.
5 kicks last time.
Yeah, and I love the teams are actually starting to make it a bit more difficult for the opposition's best players. Fancy that. When you do that, it's harder for them to play well.